G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day and a fantastic Friday, an end to your working week. Now today, as always, we do have a lot to go over. Of course, we'll look at the maps in the north, the east, the south, and on the north, we'll look at the nuclear power plant in Kursk region, and we'll look at what the International Atomic Energy Agency has said about that power plant, as well as defensive works. Then we need to look at a number of Ukrainian strikes last night as well. So we'll look at the drone strikes against the Minorovka airbase, as well then as the Neptune missile attacks against the Kavkaz ferry carrying fuel, of course, between Russia and Crimea. And then I'll actually break down that footage. You've probably seen it. You can look at it on the Telegram in full if you'd like, but it's BMP versus BMP. Is it a blue-on-blue friendly fire incident? Is it a Ukraine versus Russian incident fighting? Well, we'll break that down and have a look at exactly what has happened there. But where I want to start is at then the Minorovka airbase. Now, first off, let's show you exactly where this is. So here is the airbase. Now we zoom out of here, it'll just give you an idea of the distance that these drones have covered. Now we can't just go to the border between Ukraine and Russia because there's a lot of occupied territory. So let's come to about, we see where Pokrovsk is, so let's put the front line somewhere about here. So we're talking well over 400 kilometers that these drones have flown to attack this airbase with successful strike. Something we have seen over the past 18 months is Ukraine's ability to strike deep inside Russia, whether it's against oil facilities or air bases, has improved vastly. Not only the technology of the drones to bypass some of those defenses, but also in how they're being used in swarms, knowing that some will be sacrificed to air defense, but enough go, eventually ones will start getting through and causing strikes. So this airbase, of course, is home to many aircraft, and a lot of these are Su-34s. Of course, Su-34 is the primary vehicle carrying in those FAB glide bombs, that are causing a lot of havoc on the front line, and the ability for Russia to break up Ukraine's defenses to have then movements of Russian ground elements. Now, the reason why I show you that distance and why that is important is because slow-moving drones are being used, not, well, comparatively very fast missiles. And Fighter Bomber has spoken about the concern that once these missiles come into play, things will change very, very quickly. Tomorrow, the Ukrainians will be allowed to use long-range missiles of all types and kinds, which do not fly at 120 kilometers an hour. So like we showed you, if it's 400 Ks, you're talking a few hours that Russia can actually get these planes up in the air or move them. So the damage upon these airframes is very limited, and we've seen this many, many times. Will the West eventually approve Ukraine to use long-range missiles inside of Russia? I believe so. We've seen a lot of creep on what was always said as a no, and then we've seen that move forward from tanks to aircraft to the ability to strike inside Russia too. So I think Fighter Bomber, and I think we know that is eventually coming. When? We don't know. How successful will it be? Well, likely more than drones. Although there is one thing in this that we need to take into consideration, is long-range missiles are significantly more expensive than drones. So their ability to be used in mass as well, in like a swarm compared to drones, is greatly limited. So there's this pros and cons with everything, but they fly much faster. You're not going to be able to get the aircraft up and away if Ukraine do it, because they will strike one foul hit and take out potentially tens of aircraft at once. Of course, what people are talking about is not only air defense, but hardened shelters over those aircraft sitting out on the ground. Now, you will see some of these do have hangars, but are just a light, like galvanized, corrugated iron bloody shelter. So let's have a look at the airbase here and have a look at some of the damage. So we can see in some photographs before that there are a number of aircraft sitting then out on the, I think they call it the apron, but on the side of the runway here, you can see where these hangars are. And you can see that there has been strikes against these as well as other facilities. And of course, all this black is burning where this has then started fires. Of course, you bloody fly a drone is somewhere dry, but of course you can have fuel and oil and munitions that can ignite certain fires as well. But you can see that a number of these have been taken out as well. The actual damage on these, well, it's so difficult to know. This is more damage than around the airbase, some before and after photographs here. This is a zoom out of the amount of fires around the airbase as a total, and then a quick zoom in on some more specific areas of stores as well as where these aircraft may have been. But to actually see remnants of aircraft here is limited. So these ones here may have been empty. Aircraft may have got up and away. You can see this shrapnel that has shredded then through these hangars here. This is one of the ball bearings that is inside of these shrapnel drones. And this image here, this is, I think, the best idea of the amount of damage. So we can see these aircraft in the hangars here. Pretty sure this is a MiG-31. And then we can see, this is a Su-34, I believe. You can see that there has been damage on the side and the top of especially these last three hangars here. It's impossible to tell what, or if anything, was inside of these. So how much damage has been caused? Are they destroyed? Again, it's very, very difficult to know. I've seen claims between 1 and 5 by Ukraine of how many aircraft were destroyed in this. It's going to be very difficult to know unless we can see what exactly actually hit those. So you can see, of course, there has been some damage there against those, but it does look like the majority on the ground have got up and away. And Fighter Bomber has spoken about this guy that then took the photos getting in a little bit of trouble. Of course, this is a massive OPSEC thing and a breach. Of course, you can then get, like we're doing right now, a battle damage assessment of what was or wasn't destroyed on the ground. So definitely a significant strike to this airbase, but definitely not that 10, 20, 30 airframes that I had seen some pages claim. Some pages still claiming from here. But the concern for Russia in here should be that these attacks are going to continue, and if mixed with missiles or missiles themselves, could tell a very different story if the ability and the time isn't there to move those aircraft and get them up and airborne. So it will be interesting to see what Russia do to try and protect those aircraft, as well as how Ukraine will adopt tactics in the future and or new weapon systems or new approvals for weapon systems against these air bases, especially say those Su-34s that I spoke about earlier that cause a havoc with those glide munitions on many areas of the front line. Now let's have a look at the Kavkaz ferries. Now I'll show you firstly the geolocation of where this is. The Port Kavkaz, of course, connects between Russia and Ukraine, Crimea here, ferrying products, fuel, whatever, across then the Kerch Strait in here. Now the bridge is still up, but every time we see any strike against here, there's a lot of speculation of will this be the time the bridge goes down? Well, not this time, but let's have a look here. So you can definitely see that this is the front of a ferry here, burning very, very hot. This is more early on than that. You can see a massive fireball raising up out of here. Now this was said to be fuel on board, and Russian pages are saying the ship had 30 fuel tanks on board. So how many it is? Well, it's going to be at least 30. We're not 100% sure, but more strikes against infrastructure and logistics across into occupied territory as well, which can have a flow-on effect to the front line. But we have spoken a lot about Crimea, the new then railways from Rostov to Mariupol, Berdyansk, all the way down into Crimea as well, reducing the stress if the ferries and or the bridge gets taken down in this area for Russia to continue supplying the south in here. As many would have said in the beginning, Ukraine's objective to push down near Robotny was to create a cut in here, cut off the bridge, and then you would have a bit of a starvation of Kherson and Crimea. I think Russian command knew this. That's why they focused on the new rail link through the south. Of course, that rail link is susceptible to strikes, but being rail, well, it's much faster to repair, rebuild than a bridge or a brand new ferry. So let's have a look in the north, and I'll show you some interesting bits and pieces of today. So on the deep state map, here we are, is Ukraine, the center, the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupied since 22, the purple since 2014, the blue new territory under 2 weeks, the red new occupied territory by Russia within 24 hours. What I wish this map would do is a blue check to show the movement just of the day, because it's hard to know when Ukraine is advancing day to day what's a week old, what's a day old. Now, there has been no change up in the north for today according to this map. But as you know, I don't really use this map for up in here. I use Noel Reports' map. Now, he does show some significant changes today. Again, like I always say, it's very difficult to know with these maps, especially in Kursk, because this isn't an attritional grinding front like the east or the south. It's highly mobile, maneuverable, liquid. It's very difficult to say this is actually where the front line is. But he does show 3 primary advancements here. So, to the southeast of Suja, a more push out by the Ukrainian forces here, and then coming out to Giri. Of course, this is where a defensive line is. We have seen DRG elements out near Giri, but not like the main element pushing that this here is showing as well. Then we have a push out to the north. So we have a look at where the border is. Suja, we sort of use this as like a guide for where everything is in here, but we also are now using a bit of Kotonovo, so we can see that the south of Kotonovo is getting filled in as well. Just directly east of Kotonovo here, a push up to this road down here. Again, is this presence? Is it held? Very, very difficult to know. How much presence is there inside of Kotonovo? We know there is at least some. There are elements popping up throughout Kotonovo, but we will know better and better once we get more geolocations of exactly what is happening in here. And once this does stabilize at some point, which it definitely will, it's not stable yet, we'll get a better idea exactly where those 2 lines actually then lie. Now, this is Kursk out here, and of course where the nuclear power plant is. Now, what I don't have for you today is I don't have a Syriac map update, but I do have Warmapper has released a few maps here. Now, Warmapper is very, very conservative when it comes especially to Russian gains, but to gains, I guess, overall. So he does show this push out near Snagost as well that we have seen down in the, I'll call it the west of this primary push into here. And he's showing somewhat more control in here near Snagost. So we see right in here that this is filled in by then the Ukrainian forces as well. Out towards Kotonovo, we can see a lot of contested territory, and where the held territory is different, but not showing this push up in here, although this map is 1 day older than the other. But it does show to the north of Suja very similar amounts of control if we take this into account, but down to the southeast of Suja, his map doesn't go that far down, at least from that screenshot. So we do know this is ballooning out and becoming larger. It will be interesting to see how Russia actually respond to this. Is it to stabilize, hold in place? Will they push back through? We've spoken about in the attritional warfare strategy of the East to try and mobilize tens of thousands of guys that would be needed to push back through here could potentially be the worst thing for Russia to do because it may jeopardize other areas. So we talk a lot that could this be a swap for swap of kilometer squares? We see Zelensky referring to this as the Kursk exchange fund. So prisoners of war, we've taken a lot of guys, a lot of Russians, swapped them for Ukrainians, and potentially exchange of territory in here. Now, what we've spoken about is the exchange of territory, kilometre for kilometre, could be very limited when we compare to, I think it's about 106,000 kilometres that Russia occupy. But I have seen someone else point and go, no, it might not be kilometre for kilometre. It may be village for village. Ukraine occupies somewhere in the 90s to 100 villages here. Maybe that would work more in their favour if it came to a negotiation around that. That could be interesting. But in that attritional warfare that we've spoken about with digging in, holding, stabilizing, maybe not pushing through. You see a lot of pages today. I'm seeing a lot of like pro-Ukraine pages saying that Russia is looking to mobilize and bring off 150,000 troops off the east to push into Kursk. Now, I haven't seen anything that I would say is official to back that up or enough stuff moving that I could say that, but I'm seeing a lot of pro-Ukrainian pages saying that and pointing out that the east is about to become a lot more easy for Ukraine. But we see Brady Afric here, and he does a lot of great mapping of Russian defensive works. And he talks here that Russian forces are quickly expanded defensive in Kursk amid Ukraine's operation in this region. So primarily out to the north around here between Lvov and Kursk, building defensive works to try and at least halt this in place. What we have spoken about is if Russia do choose to halt this in place, not take the bait of trying to redeploy tens of thousands of guys here to sweep back through, it may actually work against Ukraine because Ukraine then have a lot longer front line to man and more territory to occupy, being numerically the inferior force in this war. So it will be interesting to see exactly what occurs in here. Now, Kursk nuclear power plant, we've spoken a lot about this over the past few weeks of this operation. Some saying it was the goal, others saying it could be part of a false flag operation committed by Russia as well, that they could do this to discredit then Ukraine's operation into here. It could be Ukraine trying to get a nuclear power plant. There could be a false flag there as well. Very, very difficult to know. Now, Russia has claimed overnight that a drone did fall in the vicinity of this power plant. So the IAEA was informed by the Russian Federation that remains of a drone were found within the territory of the nuclear power plant, but that's from Russian Federation. In this context, the IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi, who I've spoken about a lot on this channel, confirmed his intention to personally assess the situation at the site during his visit next week. So he himself, the Director General of the IAEA, he's going there to see exactly what is going on. Military activity in the vicinity of the nuclear power plant is a serious risk to nuclear safety and security. So it will be very interesting to see what he comes back with once he visits this location. Now, while we're on the map, let's have a look and see where other things have shifted. So like I said, no change up in there, but let's move our way down the front line and we do see a few changes. So where we'll start is then Avdiivka. Now, what we have seen is that Russia's advancement through here has continued. Not as large a step as yesterday, but still a step forward in this direction, then controlling more to the south of, we'll call the Pokrovsk front, in the direction of Karlinivka as well, more into Novhorodivka as well. So let's have a look here and we'll look on War Mapper. Now, he does like updates a few days at a time or maybe a weeks at a time, but what you can see by this is the expansion of control shown. But like I've said, is significantly more conservative towards Russian gains. We've got the Ukrainian deep state map, of course, ties with the MOD, showing that all of this is filled in here. So this map here, I would say, is, although released today, is out of date when we've got this map with those ties showing that exact movement. Now, let's just move to the north of here, northeast slightly, Toretsk, New York front. This is still showing some level of surrounding here. I don't know. I guess we still have the surround probably involved Chansk as well. Yes, we do. So I don't know how logistics and supplies are happening with some of these surroundings in here. It will be very interesting to then see. Now, we don't have a update in, oh, sorry, yes, we do. So we can see just today by this map, there has been a further push towards Toretsk by the Russian forces, and we can see that War Mapper has updated his map to show contested filled-in territories between New York and Toretsk and more control through Zalesny and Pivnetsy as well, but not to the same degree that this own map here is showing. But just to give you an idea where different maps are sitting, this will become relevant in a second. But we do have a Ukrainian advancement on this map too. So we come up to Novovdiany in here, and we can see between yesterday today that Deep State is saying that there was a Ukrainian advancement in this direction just north of Makivka, where we think there was some Russian advancement last week, but we don't have a new update specifically on this. Now, in Makivka, let's have a look, because War Mapper, again, the reason I say is very, very conservative towards Russian gain. He is showing that there is Russian control in the center of Makivka and Russian at least presence, some territory even to the west in here as well. So in my eye, more confirming that if War Map is showing it, I'd say it then definitely occurred. So then we actually need to push just north of here again, and we're looking for Ryhodka here too. Now this is where this map and War Mapper show a very, very large difference between the two as well. So these can be a little bit difficult to get your bearings on, but give it a minute. So we see Ryhodka here. Now the controlled territory is somewhat similar, but where it shows the Russian advancement, this is the Zedebets. So he is showing on this, the Russians have got to the western side of the Zedebets, and the grey zone is all the way out to Vyshevny in here as well. So bring this up. Sorry, that grey zone is well out into here, and the red is more than where my cursor is as well. Now, just to the north of here, near Stelmakivka, Kuzimivka, if we just have a scroll up this is not the easiest to see on these maps at all. So here is Kuzimivka, Novoselevsky. So showing similar of control, but here's showing more red zone popped. Right, see where this Zedebets runs, a little bit larger. Right up in here, here's showing as red all the way down through Stelmakivka to the Zedebets River as well. So this area in here showing vastly different between those two maps. He does show some advancement down near the Vimka Rozdilivka front as well. So let's have a quick look at this. Now, if we look at where this is showing, we see Vimka, Ivano-Darivka as well. See where this grey zone is, showing that there was Russian advancement out to here. Now, he's showing it was advancement. What Suryak said is, yes, there was movement up to here, but then it actually was pushed back. Russia couldn't actually move up and control that territory either. So we know there was at least some movement there, whether it has been, whether Russia has fallen back, whether Ukraine pushed them out. Regardless, we know there was, over the last week, some movement there to give us a better idea of what actually happened in there. Now, let's have a look at this footage. You can watch the full thing on the Telegram because I can only show you the very beginning of this. Now, this is BMP versus Cossack fighting vehicle here versus M113 as well. Firstly, this is where it took place. So, zoom out. We'll show you where Sumy is. This is Suja as well. And this village in here is called Ruskaya Konopelka. So, to give you an idea of where this is where this blue is, Ruskaya Konopelka, right here, happened right on, this intersection, I believe, right in here. Is that right? Yes. This intersection right here, you can see where this sort of hooks out. Now, there's a few telling things in here of the direction of vehicles and some markings on the vehicles too, and we'll see, because most pages are reporting that this was a blue on blue. Now some are saying it was a Ukraine versus Russia, and it's hard to know. I'm just going to show you what I see, and then you can make up your own mind. So we see a vehicle moving down here. This first part doesn't matter, but you see the curve in this road coming this direction, heading down here. So in the direction of where you'd assume the Ukrainian forces are coming from. Okay, there you can see the total destruction. Everything is on fire in here. Now, this is where the T intersection road is, and there is a BMP-3, a Russian fighting vehicle, sitting in here, then firing, then towards a Ukrainian M113. Now, for those who know my background, I worked a lot with and around M113s. This thing would be absolutely shredded by that. They are very lightly armored. They were outgunned in Vietnam. Those guys putting shit on the outside of them to try and give some more cover. Now, this is the part that people are interested in, is a BMP moves down a road, and some are saying it's Russian, some are saying it is Ukraine. So we can see a smoke go off there, right here. So it's moving down this road here, which is where we would presume that the Russian forces would be coming from, at least that direction. That said, urban fighting like this, as you'll see, is an absolute mess. But what I will say is there's, regardless of if you believe this is Russian or Ukrainian, there's 100% a blue on blue in here. So we skip, I'm just here. So we come forward, and what we will see is this does fire upon a Ukrainian Kazakh vehicle. See this? I'll pause at perfect time. This is a Ukrainian Kazakh vehicle. So there is at least one blue on blue, regardless of which vehicle you think this is. Now this BMP moves down in here, blocking this road. Next thing we'll see, this Ukrainian Kazakh vehicle moving rearwards in reverse flat out. Funnily, actually in this direction, down here, in the direction of where you'd presume more Russian forces then are. But the piece that is up for debate is right here. We see this BMP then hitting this BMP here. 30mm gun absolutely then lighting that up there. You can see where rounds are passing past and hitting then right back here as well. See where these rounds are hitting over here as they tear either through or ricochet off. You can see them hitting over here. And then that vehicle is then completely destroyed in this intersection. Now, is this a Russian or Ukrainian vehicle? Well, I've shown you the location of where this vehicle came down this road, and regardless, it saved, at least initially, as it pushed in here, came to here, where this BMP was working, and that Ukrainian PMV was able to move out of here, it saved that regardless of what sort of vehicle it then was. So let me show you a few things about this. We have a close-up of this, and this is the part that's difficult to know, is it tends to have either the bottom of a triangle with the top covered by the gun, or a V on the front of it as it moves in here. You can sort of see the triangles on this Ukrainian vehicle too, which is the identifier they're using on these vehicles for their Kursk operation. So many are pointing that it could be this triangle we see on the front of a Ukrainian BMP here, although smaller, and of course a triangle has a top. These are ones seen as well in and around Kursk, this triangle. But others are saying, well, Russia has a lot of Vs on vehicles too. So it's very, very difficult to know exactly actually what this was 100%. We see it fire on that Ukrainian vehicle, and then we see the BMP firing on this. Now, what I will say is it is much, much easier to misidentify a BMP than it is to misidentify then a completely different shaped mobility vehicle. And we did see this BMP that ends up getting destroyed. We did see that, as I paused, we did see it fire initially on that Ukrainian vehicle and then not turn and continue firing at it. Like I said, it'd be much easier to misidentify another BMP. And this is the problem you have when both sides are using a lot of very, very similar equipment, even with very similar identifiers on them. You think it's difficult for us sitting here right now to identify something? Imagine looking through a bloody periscope, little sights that are probably blown to shit, or through your sighting system to actually identify and hit something. We have a little bit more footage of this right here too. So intersect, this is the Kazakh vehicle moving rearwards here. This is it moving in and then gets heavily engaged here. So this is saying that it's Russian and Ukrainian. Again, I'll say that's still up for question. You can make up your mind with what I've shown you. Nor does it though turn into the Ukrainian vehicle after it only fired off one round as well. Impossible, not impossible, it's very difficult to know. What we do see after this though is a number of those Ukrainian protected mobility vehicle trucks are taken out, actually a number of soldiers in here too. That footage, if you want to watch the full breakdown of this so you can do your own analysis, that video is on my Telegram too. So what do I actually think? I think most likely it probably is a blue on blue. Something people don't like to talk about is how much friendly fire incidents actually occur in war. It's a hell of a lot. And I can 100% see how that occurred, especially with the moving down. The only things that do get me is why it engaged one round from here and didn't continue firing. But then it says also, well, it sort of blocked its way for this as well. Maybe the first round hit it and bloody couldn't traverse its turret. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I don't know if I can do polls on YouTube, but maybe I'll do a poll on Telegram. Anyway, legends, look after yourselves. Have a great day. I hope you had a great working week, and I hope you have a great weekend. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.